The V-model shares very similar advantages and disadvantages to the more traditional waterfall model, but it is worth covering them again as it helps set the scene for our discussion about agile software development. The first advantage is that the V-model is quite easy to understand and apply. It fits well with companies that have different departments all feeding into the development process. The V-model is also easy to manage as you only proceed to the next phase of the model once the current phase is complete. This makes it easier for a project manager to manage the project. Again, like with waterfall, the V-model is not flexible to changes in requirements. This means you will have to repeat phases in the model to make sure all your documentation is in place. A shift in requirements can be quite disruptive to a project, so you need to ensure the requirements are right from the start. In reality, this is never the case. Having to repeat steps in the process can be very expensive. What I have seen happen is that if there are any changes to the requirements, to mitigate the cost of disruption, the process is just bypassed to get the changes through quicker. If you're going to bypass the process, then what's the point of having the process in the first place? Now we have looked at the high level advantages and disadvantages, let's look at some more of the benefits of the V-model. The V-model does introduce some discipline to the development process, which some companies like as it is easy to track progress towards a plan, as each phase of the model feeds into the next phase. The V-model works best on small projects where the risk of changing requirements is less than that of a larger project. Generally, the V-model is easy to understand, and the extra validation phases are good for mature test departments. Project managers generally tend to like the V-model as it is easier to manage against a plan. The rigidity of the model maps well to a project manager's Gantt chart view of the world and makes their job a bit easier. Now let's look at a more detailed list of disadvantages of the V-model. The V-model can introduce a high level of risk and uncertainty for anything but a small project. Just because a set of requirements and a design has been signed off does not mean that requirements cannot change. The V-model is all about getting the requirements, design and implementation right first time, which is a grand ideal, but in the real world this is very rarely the case and this is a big risk to a project. We have talked about how the V-model is better for small projects, but it is possible to have a small but very complex project. The more complexity that is involved increases the risk of change being needed further down the line. Complexity in a system is also very hard to implement and test, and can often cause delays in the later stages of the V-model software development lifecycle. If you're working on a project where change is expected, then the V-model is not the right model for you. Once you are starting to test your developed solution, going back to make changes in the code other than to fix defects can be very difficult and expensive, especially if those are off the back of new or modified requirements. To me, the biggest disadvantage of the V-model is that you don't get any working software until late in the process. This means that your end users don't get to see their vision come to life until it is too late to change anything. It can be very hard for non-technical people to be really clear about what they want an application to do, and it isn't normally until they can visualize that application that they can give really good feedback.